Now listen, as the U.S. extended its ban on travel from Europe to include the United Kingdom and Ireland, U.S. airports faced overcrowding, long lines, and hours of delays as travelers returning from Europe had to undergo screenings for the coronavirus. Scenes from Chicago's O'Hare Airport, jam-packed terminals, people standing shoulder to shoulder as officials scrambled to set up the enhanced entry screenings announced by the Trump administration.
How could they have been so ill-prepared? Donald Trump knew this was coming. He could have called out the National Guard if he had to. He could have done anything. Once again, so ill-prepared. And look how close everybody is jam-packed in there.
Using the bathroom, stuck for hours. This is a disaster.
Again, the president is ill-prepared for a crisis.
So according to the Washington Post, officials acknowledged that 40,000 passengers returning from Europe over the weekend had created chaotic conditions in strained airports, with many travelers reportedly wondering why the health checks put in place were not stricter and did not generally include temperature checks. Acting Director of Homeland Security Chad Wolf said that the department was aware of the long lines and asked travelers for their patience.
Why didn't they prepare for this? They knew this was coming.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker blasted the Trump administration, asking the president to, quote, do something now. Here's what the governor had to say on Meet the Press.
I got a call at about 11 o'clock last night after that tweet from a White House staffer who yelled at me about the tweet. That is what I got. We're on our own out here. I wish we had leadership from Washington. We're not getting it.
So there's a healthcare crisis, actually, Caddy, in Chicago O'Hare. There are healthcare crises at all of these airports where people are jammed, packed in for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time.
40,000.
40,000 people. Healthcare crisis. The White House is completely ill-prepared for this, even though it was the president who set up this policy, and they had to know this was coming. And these people are forced to do exactly what Dr. Fauci and the entire scientific and medical team has been saying now for weeks. And the White House has a staffer call yelling about a tweet to a governor whose own people had to be exposed to the pandemic, standing in those contained spaces, jam-packed for 4 hours. And the White House is worried about a tweet.
Yeah, I mean, now that all of us have become conscious of having 1 meter around them, I look at those photographs and I literally am sitting here feeling my anxiety levels rise, thinking, how would you cope being that close to somebody? The Chinese tried to shut down their early whistleblower, and it caused them a huge amount of problems. It caused people to die because they wouldn't recognize the problem. The one thing we have learned from two things we have learned from the Chinese experience is transparency is much better. The governor of Illinois was quite right to complain about this. This is a huge health problem he has sitting on his doorstep, and the White House tried to shut him down. But the other thing we've learned about from China is that you take massive amounts of screening and you do it super efficiently. You got on a bus in China, you entered a building in China, you walked down the street. Your temperature was being taken every time you entered a supermarket. Your temperature was taken, and it was done in an instant. And here they set up this policy where they knew they were going to have thousands of panicked people coming back from Europe. And where was the screening? Where was the fast, efficient temperature testing so that you didn't have those people standing within centimeters of each other, within inches of each other, not within 3 feet of each other. They're within inches of each other, knowing that that was going to cause a problem. I mean, we have seen some of this before where the White House announces what looks like a kind of, Stephen Miller type policy, very big, very bold. But then there's no follow-up. There's no expertise. There's no bank of talent behind that to get the systems in place to make sure that it works properly.
Joe,
David Ignatius, we look like a failed country in those moments.
Yeah.
Not a failed country, but it looks like Washington, D.C. is failed. And we have failed leadership in Washington, D.C. And our leaders don't know how to perform the most basic of functions. Again, this is a policy that Donald Trump set up himself at a press conference last week. This is the result. These people coming back are a result of Donald Trump saying they needed to return to the United States and would be screened beforehand. I'm fine with that. Dr. Fauci said it was a good idea. Seems like a good idea to me. But there was no preparation for it whatsoever. So what happened was we're having screenings to stop people from being exposed to those with coronavirus. And here we have 40,000 people jammed together. Obviously, there are people coming from the most affected continent in the world. Obviously, there were people that had coronavirus there. It takes several days to show symptoms. Obviously, passing that along to other people. So the president, in effect, has caused the spread of coronavirus by being ill-prepared here. And who knows what the ramifications of this are going to be. He knew this was coming and still did nothing about it.
Joe, your hearts go out to the people when you look at those photographs standing there hour after hour, knowing the risks. What can they do about it? They're just caught, as you say, in somebody else's poor judgment. When we think about what led to those scenes in the airports, there was a rushed attempt, as we understand it, by the time of the president's Thursday night speech, to get the elements of this policy together, to get the travel ban announced so quickly. The European countries didn't even know this was coming. In a sense, how could you prepare O'Hare Airport when the countries from which the people were leaving didn't know either? And it was done in a kind of let's prepare a television announcement spectacular, and it had the opposite of the desired effect. One thing that I just feel, I know we all do, is our hearts go out to the people who were caught in this. Each of us can think what it would be like to be standing in that line, just knowing your risk of terrible disease was going up minute by minute, and there's nothing you can do about it. Those are the people we ought to be thinking, how can we help them out of this mess?
And Joe, to underscore the dangers of some of the misinformation, as the same time as the Illinois governor put out that tweet crying out for help from the White House on Saturday, the Republican governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt, put out a tweet of him with his family at a restaurant, basically saying this is what Americans should be doing. That was Saturday night. On Sunday, he had to declare a state of emergency in Oklahoma. And one other point, in terms of the president, the contrast, as we talked about this weekend, Joe, between the president getting up there in the briefing room and spouting happy talk, as David Ignatius said, followed by the vice president and Dr. Fauci, who are giving more sort of sober analysis as to the situation and providing information to Americans who are nervously watching, while the president, according to our reporting and others, part of what is informing this response, what of course is fueling all of his rhetoric on this, which has not been as serious as it should be, is his concerns about the markets and how that of course impacts his reelection. It is all about his campaign going this fall, and he has told aides around him, he does not want this to be overblown, in his words. So it negatively impacts his chances this November.
And the stupidity and the recklessness of political leaders to say, go out to restaurants, go out to pubs, as Devin Nunes said. You had the governor of Oklahoma saying that, and then the next day having to declare an emergency. Yeah, the governor of South Carolina last week saying he wasn't going to close anything. In fact, he was going to go to the St. Patrick's Day parade himself. And then he had to announce yesterday that he was closing schools in South Carolina. I mean, what is it about these Republican leaders? They think that they think you can shoot a virus? They think your AR-15 is going to help a virus? They think some macho display is somehow going to beat a virus? No, you can't. See, let me help you out here. You can't bully a virus, okay? You got to outthink it. You can't be stupid. Taking your family out to a restaurant when the top scientists in the world are telling you to stay home and protect them. And then the next day you're made a fool of. You have to call a national emergency, so you've just admitted that you've put your family at risk and everybody around your family at risk. And in South Carolina, the governor trying to act like a big shot. Oh, we're not listening to the World Health Organization. People keep going out eating, go to pubs. I'm going to be going to the St. Patrick's Day parade myself. And then he's forced to declare an emergency. It's really the recklessness. I mean, I know people were giving really dangerous, reckless monologues on TV, but that's last week. And those were cable news people. You don't want to aspire to be us. If you're governor of a state and you're responsible for the health and well-being of senior citizens whose very lives are on the line, you've got to do better. Your calling is higher. You've got to do more. You can't play for the cheap seats. Be an idiot and hold up an AR-15 and wave it around and say, I'd like to see somebody come take this, like a member of Congress did in his own room. But I don't even get into that. Like, find other ways to symbolize your fake masculinity, all right? But when it comes to this virus, think about your mother, think about your father, think about your grandfather, think about your grandmother. I see these cases in Florida, South Florida, that are exploding. It's going to be senior citizens in Florida, senior citizens in Arizona, senior citizens across America who are going to pay the disproportionate cost, just like the senior citizens in Washington State. They're going to pay the disproportionate cost for your stupidity. You are literally, with your actions, killing senior citizens. Pull back. Be responsible, listen to the scientists, and show some leadership.
Because we actually are all in this together.
We're in this together.
We're stuck with each other.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.